think I've said too much. I think I said too much. This is the house I grew up in. This is the house that I grew up in, spent the second half of my childhood growing up in. And it was in Buckinghamshire, not in London. We moved to London later. I really wanted to live in London, but it was a nice house. It was on a nice street, middle class area, upper middle class to wealthy, really. And, I look back on it now because some people, their parents live in the same house for the rest of their lives. And some people's parents still live in their childhood home. We've moved around a lot. We moved, a lot when I was growing up. And I lived in a house before this with my parents as a child. And the first house didn't look anything like this. And it was a much smaller house. I lived there with my parents in the second half of my childhood. It was in Buckinghamshire. It was in the country, sort of. And, I went to a private all-girls school, a Catholic school. Let me tell you, there was a house around the corner that was spectacular. Literally, all you had to do was come out of my front door, turn left. Was it left? Yeah. Turn left and then turn again. And you would be at the house that I'm talking about. It was a massive house. And when my parents were house hunting, they went to visit, they went to look at this house. I'm telling you, this house was absolutely spectacular. I heard that an EastEnders actor moved into that house at some point. And, like I said, this was a very nice house, but the one around the corner was even nicer. And the house, I saw it. I went in there and I had a look around because my parents wanted me to see it. One of my parents' friends went into that house and wanted to buy it immediately. It was spectacular. The garden was huge. We lived in another house with a huge garden too when we moved to London. But, at that time, that was one of the very few gardens that I'd seen like that. The landing was huge. You could make an apartment out of the landing itself. The rooms were spacious. The dining room was just decorated beautifully, so elegant, high ceilings. I think there were 2 living rooms that were huge. I think it even had a bar or something like that. But, so when I was living in this house, although it was a wonderful house to grow up in, and I feel very privileged looking back on it, especially with, how times are hard right now for everybody. I lived in that house, always remembering that there was a much bigger house just around the corner from where I lived. But anyway, it's always nice to have a bit of an introduction to my podcast. Excuse me, everyone. Excuse me. I'm having fried chicken for my lunch. Can you hear this? Crispy fried chicken. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's very crispy. So, Frankie hasn't played the game very well at all. And, they tried to use Clair Morgan to make a, statement with regard to AD, but AD figured her out. And then when he remained after her very feeble efforts, she ran away. So he won even in that sense, because they were trying to present her, as a solicitor, as an attorney, as a lawyer. And she wasn't any of those things. And when she got exposed, she ran away because they underestimated AD. That's very good when you actually, I'm not a fan of AD's content at all. Let me get that straight. Let me impress on you that I'm not a fan of his content. But he knows how to play the game. And I don't know if he's strategic in doing it, but he does know how to play the game. AD plays games very well. I've had a creator who's tried to play me, but he got outsmarted. I outplayed him. completely. I played him completely. He thought he was playing me, but actually I could see right through what he was doing, and he wasn't able to, win the game. And I'm not saying that, I'm not declaring myself as the winner, but sometimes you have to realize, sometimes you have to make somebody make the first move and watch what they do from afar and not say anything. And then once you figure them out, you make the moves and you outsmart them. But what happened with Frankie is that he talked too much, said too much. And AD sat there, let him talk, and then outsmarted him in the end, which is the best way to go. It's the best route to go. Now, in Frankie Rzuceks and AD, and I'm talking about these two people as if they were going to, as if it was Frankie versus AD or AD versus Frankie. They have interesting personality types. Frankie is what I would call unrealistic. He has a fantastical idea of what's going to happen or what could happen. He makes statements and comments, but nothing ever seems to come to fruition. And, he's made a lot of comments about AD on this platform. And what AD does is he plays the mind games very, very well. He plays Frankie. And I'm going to talk about these type of creators and, people, how people react and relate to each other on social media, but in life in general, how people can play each other. Because there's a kind of a game going on where Frankie will make a comment about AD. He hasn't made a comment about AD in a long time, but Frankie, say hypothetically in the past, when he's made a comment about AD, what AD does is he uses anything that Frankie says to his advantage and he plays it. So he'll say something like, they're taking me to court. I need money to defend myself. And what does that do? He garners the sympathy from his subs, and his subs will give him money. Put money towards a court case that's never going to happen. So AD gets the advantage in that sense, because Frankie will put a statement out and say something about taking AD to court. AD will tell his subs, he'll use it for content. They're taking me to court, and I need to start a fund so that I can make a counterclaim. And so what happens? His subs will feel sympathy for him. They'll give him money. So AD wins. AD wins that kind of play between, that kind of game that they have going on between them. AD is currently winning. And, everything, he's still here. There's been no updates. And he's still putting his content out with very, very little interruption. So AD is playing the game very, very well. And, it just makes Frankie look like somebody who says things but never follows through with them, or never has anything to bring to the table that's going to make a change. And that plays into AD's hands so, so well. Saying too much. My point is that Frankie has already said things are going swimmingly. He's constantly implied and said on his community posts that he has good news coming soon. And this has been going on for well over a year. Good news is coming soon. Things are going swimmingly. Well, you've already said all of that. You've already put this out on a public platform. So when people ask questions and you say, we can't say anything, well, you've already said too much. You already said too much. So people will ask questions. and people will want to know why AD's still around. You've already said things are going swimmingly. You've got good news coming soon. You've been saying that for what, over 6 months, over a year? So when people ask questions and you say, we can't say anything else, we can't tell you any more, well, you've already said too much. So people are looking to see results now. Moral of the story: don't say things and give people the presumption of a high expectation if you can't follow through with it, if you can't deliver. That's my advice, because people are looking to see what's happening. Why is AD still around? Because I'm wondering, why is AD still around? You said things are going swimmingly. Well, why hasn't nothing happened yet? Over-promising and under-delivering is what you've done. You over-promised and under-delivered. And I'll talk more about this in another podcast. But the moral of the story is not to over-promise, because when you make promises, people expect to see results. People expect to see things come to fruition. If you say, I'm going to give you a dress and I'm going to send it to you in the post, and you keep saying that, but the post never is received, it never comes, then people start to question everything that you say. Over-promising and under-delivering is what Frankie has done, and AD's just having the last laugh.